My name is Amanda Boyarshinov, and I am one of the co-authors of the Educator Spin on It. This week, we are organizing a team of playful preschool blogging family and teachers to talk to us about all the harvest activities we're doing in our homes and classrooms. I'm a K-12 reading teacher with experience teaching kindergarten and first grade. I have my national board certification in early childhood, and I have 3 wonderful kids of my own, one who is a 4.5-year-old preschooler. And here with me today, I have Jodie from Growing Book by Book. Jodie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jodie Rodriguez, and I blog at Growing Book by Book. I am also an educator. I taught first, second, and third grade, and then I moved into administration. I also have my national board certification in early childhood generalist education. And now I stay home with my 2 boys, one of which is almost 4, and we're doing preschool at home this year.
And this week we're talking about the harvest. And I will have to admit, I think it is one of my absolute favorite themes in the whole wide world. Most people, it's hard to know what a person's like when you read their blog or you read their writing because you only get a little glimpse of it. And I consider myself a hybrid parent. Meaning I am very eco-friendly, we're eco-living, we recycle, I make my own bread every week, and we have a garden. We just moved, so it's actually quite a big garden, and planted, we harvest and can and jam, so I'm huge into teaching children the value of what harvest means, to actually the act of harvest and the whole season of harvest. So we started off the week with some fabulous books, and these ones happen to be by the publisher Lee and Low. I think you've read this one, Jodie.
Oh, it's one of my favorite books.
I think it's a fantastic connection with harvest. And in the story, the children go to their grandfather's garden, and they harvest the most beautiful vegetables from the garden in all sorts of colors, and they put them together to make a rainbow stew. And the text is very preschool appropriate, and it flows very nice, and the kids get really engaged when they're reading this.
And doesn't it have a yummy recipe at the end too? I thought that one had a recipe. I don't remember now. I thought it did.
Yes, it did. Which, I must have been reading it with a preschooler and an active toddler next to me because I didn't even see that the 8 times I read it this week. It looks good too. So that actually is a great extension for us to do maybe even tomorrow. And I love cooking with kids because the bonus activity is that you get to learn and your dinner is ready.
Absolutely. And especially with a book like Rainbow Stew, which is all about vegetables and getting the kids involved, and then you want to try new vegetables. It's a great way to get kids to try new foods, especially vegetables.
Yeah, and they just make the act of harvesting look like at a kid level because it's a backyard garden. It's not this big farm production. So I think it brings it more personal. If you don't have a garden, this is what a harvest would look like at a grandpa's garden.
Well, and they're doing it out in the rain, which what kid doesn't like to go outside in the rain and can't envision doing that?
And then the other book that I'm obsessed with harvest activities. So I probably could pull 50 books from my shelf right now. I hope my friend is not watching this because she's a big gardener, and I have her this cute little pack from Scholastic, and it's like carrots grow in the ground, lettuce grows carrots grow underground, lettuce grows on the ground, tomato grows on the vine. And so it's 3 little books. And so we're pairing it with, there's a little Melissa and Doug gardening set, a gardening game for preschoolers. And so that's like her little birthday gift for her when she turns 3 this weekend. So I have those, and like I have gardening books everywhere. But this one I really liked, Yum Que Rico, because a lot of times the harvest books are all about pumpkins and all about apples. Every once in a while you get some tomatoes and carrots, like Roots and Shoots is one of my favorites. There's a million other ones, but this one is actually a collection of haikus, and it talks about very unusual South American and foods like chocolate and chilies. It has some blueberries, cranberries, papaya, peanuts. And so on one side, it has this cute little haiku. And then on the other side, it has a whole bunch of nonfiction facts. Now, I wouldn't read all the nonfiction facts in one reading because that would just be way too much sensory vocabulary overload for my child. But we read through the haikus, and then we picked one to learn more about each day. And so that way we could read and interact with this book every day for an entire week. So I like that it addressed some other fruits and vegetables that we wouldn't normally talk about with harvest.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, one of the books that my kids absolutely loved was Hardscrabble Harvest, which is an older book, but this was the first time I had read it, but we've read it countless times and just had to take it back to the library. But it's by, the last name is Ipcar, I-P-C-A-R, I believe. But it's really neat because, like you said, so many of the harvest books are apple and pumpkin associated. But this one talks about lots of different crops that are harvested, and it's all about the animals who try to get into the crops and the farmer, how he has to chase them out of the crop. So it's a fun book, but yet educational because the kids get to see how different crops grow and then how they're harvested. And then at the end of the story, the family harvests and cans their food and puts it in the basement and has a big Thanksgiving feast at the end. But it was a really neat book that my kids could not get enough of. In fact, we might have to buy it because we liked it so much.
I was just saying, oh, you better not tell that to somebody who's got such an obsession.
Yes. There are so many great harvest books, but that was probably by far our favorite one this season.
That's fun. Well, I did bring with me some other activities that we'd set out, kind of trying to take the books and bring them into our play-based learning. And I do have a little kitchen that I set out for my boys, and we have all sorts of food. I have some plastic food, I have some wooden food, I even have some homemade food. But I tried to go through the books and pick out some of the same items that were represented in the book so that we could harvest them and pretend to serve them. So I made these like 6 years ago, and they're still going strong. And then pineapple, trying to get that it's not just corn and pumpkins, carrots. We had green peppers in our garden this year, so I have some of those as well. And the kids just carried this around all week and told me they were going to cook the harvest for me. But okay. And I have an almost 2-year-old, so with him we're trying to work on vocabulary of like what actual things are. And then with my preschooler we're trying to say, okay, now what's a fruit and what's a vegetable? And kind of getting a little bit of even sneaking some nutrition into it, like going with rainbow stew that you have to eat a rainbow. And then one of the other stations that I set up for my kids, I have dried wheat. And so we just put the magnifying glass out, and the kids have been very gentle with my wheat. I may have told them that if they break my weed, I will be upset. Because it's one of my fall decorations. And once it's dry, you know it's fragile. But we read The Little Red Hen, and I have some magnet story characters. And so we've been talking about technology and history, and how in long time ago stories like The Little Red Hen, they actually had to physically cut down the wheat by like hands or hand tools and bring it to the granary, and they would mill the wheat into flour. And so this is kind of that connection, because this is not what we see in the store or what we use to bake our bread. And so I think my preschooler is getting it. Because we saw these, I've been trying to put some more videos in my blog articles. And so some recent hits have been these big farm tractor YouTube videos where like you see all the wheats and the grains going in and kind of see them working from different angles. So I'm using them as a motivational tool. When their playroom is clean, we might get to see the harvest video.
And my boys would love that, because they love to watch all kinds of tractors and combine harvesters and all of that equipment at work. So that would be a great motivator for them too. Speaking of the Little Red Hen, I know one of our playful preschool bloggers at Fun-A-Day did a whole sensory experience with the Little Red Hen book this week too, so which was really cool, and used the wheat too.
And I think I like how she had her sensory experience, and then she had the books set out right beside it, so that there was that play, and then there's also the literacy connection.
Right, and really encourage that retelling of the story. So read the story and then use the props and the sensory experience to retell the story, which really builds comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really good.
I stopped at the Fresh Market, which there's one in our city, and it's like my little treat to go. And they had these giant pumpkins, and that were like the bumpy ones, and the enormous ones for carving. And I really wanted to get one, but I said, no, it's not even October yet. And then I saw all of our preschool friends started posting these fabulous science and math and sensory activities with their pumpkins, and I was like, oh, I should have got it.
These are the only ones I've broken down and bought so far. We got the little miniature ones when we were at Trader Joe's the other day, but we're holding out for the big ones until we can actually go to the farm and pick them.
Which is definitely somebody like who has a small garden. I think my kids have experienced the act of harvesting several times, so they kind of understand all like the hard work and effort, and it's kind of a positive and negative thing, I think, the harvest season, because you get to see all the fruits of your labor. All your hard work is, ready to come off the vine. And I think it's also kind of sad, because here you have this open garden with nothing in it anymore. But if you don't have that experience, you touched upon something really good, Jodie, is that you can go there. Most communities, like around this season, have pumpkin patch. They're either called what's yours called? Is it a you pick pumpkin patch?
Yeah, most of them we're in the Midwest, and most of them are kind of you pick farms. So the particular farm that we go to has apple picking and pumpkin picking, although they do grow other crops too, and it's just a little family farm. But there are actually several that are around us. So depending on what part of the world you live in, whether or not that they're available. But I know a lot of us who in the Midwest at least have access to you pick farms.
And we're in the South, and we don't have any pumpkin picking places, they call them pumpkin patches here, and they bring them in. So it's not, I guess, a true harvest because they've already harvested for you. But at least you kind of, at one of ours, they take the kids out on a hayride, and then they get to pick the pumpkins off in the farm. So it kind of simulates, I guess, to the best of the ability, what a pumpkin patch would be. If you were looking up, like if you wanted to go and you've never been to one in your city, what do you think you'd look for?
I think it would probably be You Pick Pumpkin Farm. If you Googled something like that, I think that would probably pull up, probably be the best bet.
Yeah, I just went and visited my parents in Minnesota, and so I just typed in apple orchard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of the U.S. is like July to beginning of November for apple picking, depending on the variety.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Ours started. Well, we're Missouri, Illinois area, so ours started, I believe, in August because we went the end of August, and it'll go through mid-September or so here.
Yeah. So if you went to the apple picking to pick apples at the orchard, like your kids kind of get that word harvest. And then your activity, which you haven't shared yet today, was so cute because you don't have to have a little garden. You don't have to have any fancy vegetables from the store. I was like, oh my God, Jodie's genius. I love your ideas.
So yes, so you can teach the kids about harvesting, but if you don't have those vegetables, you can just harvest alphabet letters. And these happen to be little wood slices that we made over the summer. This came from a beloved tree in our front yard that we had to cut down, and I told my husband to save some of the branches, and we sliced them off and used Mod Podge and made some letters. But we also have, I just found these at a yard sale this week, all these just fabric little letters. So any kind of letter that won't blow away that you can use outside would work. And we just scattered these all across the lawn, kind of in a little area. And then I had 2 kids playing, so we put 2 cones out, and the kids were the animals because we kind of based this off of Hardscrabble Harvest, the book that we had read, in which all the animals tried to get the farmer's crops. So I was the farmer, or my husband also played, and he was the farmer. And the kids, who were the animals, had to run and get a letter and take it back to their home, which was their cone. So it was a great gross motor activity. Well, it's been kind of warm afternoons here lately, so we definitely worked up a sweat. But so they run, they get a letter, they run back to their home, and if the farmer doesn't catch them before they get home, if they can name the letter that they picked from the field, they get to keep it in their home. And if they don't name the letter correctly, then they have to put it back. So it's a great way that not only is it a gross motor activity, but you're working on letter identification. Now, my preschooler happens to know his letters, so we added the little extra part on of he had to tell me the sound that letter represents to make it just a little bit more difficult for him. So they had great fun. My husband actually got a broom out and was chasing him away with a broom as he was trying to tag them, because that happens in the story too. So ever since we've played it, the boys have asked to play it every single day, and they're just having so much fun with it, and they don't even realize the learning that's going on with it, which is just so neat too. So plus mom gets a little exercise, which is great too. It's a double bonus. So
I was gonna say that's like a triple bonus. Wait, like dad's involved, literacy connection, gross motor, family connecting, you're outside. Maybe that's like even a quadruple connection.
Right. And we even put a little spin on it today. We did our story time in the park today with some other families, and so we had about 30 kids or so there today, and so we scattered letters too, and we happened to read a story about squirrels and how they gather food during the fall for the winter. And so they did the same thing. They pretended to be squirrels, and they ran out and got their letters and then brought them back, and we did a little letter identification. So I really love to incorporate the growth motor with the learning. It just helps to build connections. So we try to do a lot of movement with our learning.
Movement and repetition, because as you're saying that, my 4.5-year-old does not know his letters, and he just hasn't had any interest at all in letters until probably 2 weeks ago. So
now he knows the letter O, right?
Yeah, he's got the letter O. And I'm pretty sure he has the letter N, but he's kind of being a little stinker about it. So I'll be like, do you know what this letter is? Can you help me sound it out? And he'll be like, I don't know that one. And then I'll ask him later, it's like, oh, it's an N. It's like, okay, so either he's still probably not 100% sure that he's right, and he's going to be one of those kids that some kids need it 20 times, some kids need it 100 times, and he's probably going to need it 200 times. And he'll have to be the one that's running with it. He'll have to be motivated to actually interact with that letter. And I think he just hasn't had a purpose before, which is why I loved your game today, because there's a purpose to knowing that letter. If you know that letter, and then you get to harvest it and keep it.
Right.
If you don't know that letter, it's scary.
Back in the field it goes.
So, as always with our Hangouts, I'm inspired by your ideas, and I will be doing some of them tomorrow. I don't have those cute little wooden things, but I'm trying to think what material I might have that won't blow away.
Well, even those foam sheets that are a little bit thicker, just writing letters on there, just something, paper is going to blow away, but anything that's even cardboard with the letters written on them, it's a little bit heavier, so that wouldn't blow away as easily.
Yeah, but those wood ones looked like you could just like spit them out. Maybe rocks.
Rocks would be great. Yeah. And even magnetic letters would work too. If your grass isn't too tall, or even if you're playing on a driveway or something, magnetic letters would work too.
Right. I love it. And what a fun way to reinforce the act of harvest.
Right.
Harvest your letters. You know, it doesn't have to be an elaborate garden for those of us who are in love with gardening and outdoor. It can be something so simple as throwing letters in your lawn and letting the kids harvest them. We have on our blogs, and I'll put the links to them in the video below, a whole bunch of learning activities for harvest theme geared for preschool. Again, if you have a toddler, you can modify them and provide more parental support for most of them. Even if you have a kindergartner or first grader, I think a lot of these activities that we're talking about could be easily adapted to meet their needs. Like Jodie was saying, if your child knows their letter names, maybe it's the letter sounds. If your child already knows their letter sounds, maybe you have their harvesting sight words. Mm-hmm. You know, so as parents, what's nice is that we have our own children, and we can adapt it very easily to their needs. And so we hope that you'll take the activities we help create and share and do them this week with your little ones. So thank you for coming, and have a happy learning week.